Good day, everybody. My name is Baron Paul, and I'm a psychologist here at Stabilis Rehabilitation Center for the last 23 years. Now, I have had many difficult questions being asked, and I think one of the most commonly one which we tend to find is these telephone calls from loved ones where they are asking, how do I convince my husband or my wife, my son or my daughter to be admitted? Now, people need to understand this is most probably one of the hardest questions because there's many different reasons or excuses why people do not want to come for rehabilitation. And I need to be able to understand a couple of things. So to simplify it, on this hand, we've got our drug life. On this hand, we've got our normal life. And people they do not want these two worlds to collide. And would be very creative with many different lies and many different defense mechanisms to try to keep these two worlds apart. And they are trying their utmost best for these two worlds never to collide. So people need to be able to understand, and they're doing so more for themselves because they feel ashamed of their substance abuse life. So people need to understand that it is exceptionally hard for them to admit to this particular part within themselves. And that's a process which they need to go through by themselves as well. Although I'm going to try to give you some kind of guidelines how to handle this or how to confront them, I need people to understand that it's a process which they also need to go through. And by forcing somebody to go through rehabilitation is, according to me, never really advised. So please, here are a couple of defense mechanisms which I have seen so often within Stabilis. And I think for starters, the most commonly one which we tend to see is what we call blaming. Now, when I talk about blaming, that is when they would like to blame external things or external people, like you. So it would start off sentences about you or about the work. And that is for them not to take responsibility for themselves. So they can use that external factor to justify their behavior. And I think one of the most common things I would like people to understand within this particular defense mechanisms, please try to keep the focus on him or her. Because the tendency is the moment when we start blaming you would like to go into your own defense mode and try to justify why you're doing what you're doing. The moment when you start doing so, that's when you are just making this whole process even worse, because then they're going to use it even more because they realize that it's working. So I would quite often use sentences like, we're not here to talk about me, we're here to talk about you. Let's not change the subject. Let's not blame external factors. Let's go back to what you have done or what is happening currently within your life. The second thing which we also tend to find is they would like to make it less for what it actually is, what we call minimalization. It will be typically sentences like, it was only once, it was only the weekend, it was only this coming Saturday, it was only 50 Rand. So that's when they would like to make it less for what it actually is. In that particular scenario, my advice which I would like to give to the loved ones is please try to create a space where he or she feels safe enough. Because the general tendency is they do not want to admit to the full truth because they are, first of all, ashamed of it, and second of all, they are afraid of what you're going to think or how you're going to respond to this. So although the natural inclination is to become angry, I'm trying to ask you, please, beforehand, you're not allowed to become angry at a particular moment in time, because the moment where you start becoming aggressive, they go even more so in defense mode. Which we also find quite often is what we call justification. The justification is where we would like to justify it to themselves and towards you. They would use words like, it's not that bad, everybody's doing so, it's legal, it's socially acceptable. So that's common tendency which we see quite often within Stabilis. And I think here's a part which you need to bring the hard facts, real consequences, real examples which actually has happened. Because the tendency is when we start going to the justification, they become so brilliant with it that they actually are convincing, that they actually start convincing you, or second of all, they also tend to convince themselves that it was not that bad. And which we so often see is denial, and I smile for a particular reason. There's even a song been written many years ago. I think it was Shaggy who sang the song, but it was starting off, it wasn't me. So they would quite often say that it was my friends' alcohol, it was my friends' dagga, or that they just go into that's a denial mode. And that's also hard, because if you don't have true, real examples, I'm warning you beforehand, they're going to play that card, because they do know so often that you don't know, that you don't have real examples. So please, when you go into them, confronting them, you need to have real examples of real incidences which actually happened. Otherwise, they're going to play that denial up until the end, which is extremely annoying, because you know deep down that this is true, but you can't prove it. And then last, it's what we call rationalization, which we also quite often found is everybody is doing so. They would like to rationalize it. Now, rationalization and justification are very similar to one another. So again, in this particular scenario, please bring to them real consequences. So for argument's sake, what is happening due to their substance abuse, whether it's work-wise, whether it's health-wise, whether it's relationship-wise. So please bring to them real consequences in regards to what is happening in their lives and the people around them. I would like to end off. To gain complete honesty, it is important to let go of all your fears and defense mechanisms. And I would love to end off by repeating myself with one very important part. Please create a safe space where he or she can feel safe enough to tell you the honest and the real truth, because otherwise their fears are so overwhelming that they will start defending themselves for two reasons. First of all, for they do not want to admit it to themselves, and they do not want to admit it to you, because what you think about them really matters to them as well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching this video. If there's any questions, please feel free to phone us at Stabilis. Please take care and look after yourself. Bye for now.